What if I told you that heartbreak, rebellion, loss, love, and occasionally the unsettling truth have all been represented in country music? However, what occurs when a song seems a bit too personal? From "The Pill" that was outrightly banned for promoting birth control to the song "Goodbye Earl" promoting domestic violence and morther. Here are the 15 controversial country songs that have ever been banned, along with the outrageous backstories. Number 1. "The Pill," Loretta Lynn. Loretta Lynn's groundbreaking country song, "The Pill," bravely addressed women's sexual autonomy and reproductive rights, which was uncommon in popular country music at the time. Although the song was recorded in December 1972, its release was postponed until early 1975, most likely due to her label, MCA, being cautious about the issue. Back to the Country, her 25th studio album, which was released in February 1975, included it as the sole single and provided a daring prologue. The lyrics, which express a rural woman's dissatisfaction with child-rearing and her newfound independence, promote birth control, especially the freedom that the pill gives women in regulating their reproductive choices. Country radio was quite conservative in 1975, and since it was taboo to discuss contraception publicly, several stations, particularly in Atlanta and Detroit, refused to air it. The song is thought to have been banned by more than 60 radio stations. However, reports differ. Notwithstanding the criticism, the incident stoked interest and increased the song's prominence beyond what many had expected. Despite receiving little attention, it shot to the 5th position on the Billboard Hot Country Singles list, which is below her typical high but still outstanding given the situation. With a position of number 70 on the Billboard Hot 100, it became her highest-charting solo success on the pop chart. The song had an even more enthusiastic welcome in Canada, where it peaked at number 1 on the RPM Country Singles list and rose to number 49 on the RPM Top Singles chart. Later, Loretta Lynn described how the song's charting made the prohibition unworkable, saying everyone had to play it when it was on the charts. Lynn, who became a mother at a young age and had 6 children by her mid-30s, stated, "If I'd had the pill back when I was having babies, I'd have taken them like popcorn," demonstrating how closely the song mirrored her real-life experience. Many doctors informed her that the song had a greater impact on raising awareness of birth control in rural regions than any health campaign or booklet. She never considered herself a feminist, but her honest songs, particularly "The Pill," gave women's voices a platform in country music. Time reported after her passing that the song is still mostly avoided on country radio, demonstrating how controversial it was even decades later. Number 2. "Maybe I Mean Yes," Holly Dunn. Holly Dunn's 1991 country song "Maybe I Mean Yes" caused controversy soon after it was released because of its lyrical content, which many saw as trivializing or encouraging non-consensual sexual conduct. The lyrics includes the lines, "When I say no, I mean maybe," or "maybe I mean yes." Dunn hoped that this light-hearted approach to flirting and love pursuit would convey a humorous perspective on the difficulties of dating and female coyness that was prevalent in previous country music eras. However, many others believed that the message was supporting the culture of rape by implying that a woman's no may actually mean yes, which runs counter to the ideas of explicit, affirmative consent. Critics claim the song blurred the boundaries between want and resistance, sending a harmful message, particularly to young listeners. For many, the song simplified sexual boundaries in a time when awareness of date rape and consent education were the main concerns. Parents' organizations, media critics, and women's rights groups all openly denounced the song. A number of radio stations stopped playing it, and discussions over the song's theme spread across the country. Some people voiced their disapproval by writing to Holly Dunn's label and contacting radio stations. Dunn defended the song, arguing that it was not meant to be literal, but rather light-hearted and flirty. She asserted that the song portrayed innocent love teasing and was misunderstood. She willingly removed the song from the charts when the criticism grew more severe. In a public statement, Dunn said, "I never meant to imply that no doesn't mean no. I understand how this can be misinterpreted, and I don't want to be part of that confusion." Artists hardly remove their own singles from marketing, especially when they are on the rise. This was a unique action. The song was doing well on Billboard's Hot Country Songs list prior to the controversy. It peaked at number 48 before being removed. Following the incident, no music video was made, and it was left off of subsequent collections. It basically vanished from Holly Dunn's current inventory. Dunn was a well-known performer with several top 10 singles, but the scandal overshadowed her other wins. Number 3, Red Rag Top, Tim McGraw.
18, we were just about as wild as we were green in the ways of the...
One of the more socially controversial songs in popular country music of the early 2000s is Tim McGraw. Red Rag Top, which was released in 2002 as part of the Tim McGraw and the Dancehall Doctors album, is a tale of young love, an unwanted pregnancy, and abortion. Abortion is a very delicate and divisive topic, particularly in country music, which has historically tended toward conservatism. The song's lyrical content caused several country radio stations to decline to play it out of concern about listener reaction. It was only played in specific markets by some stations, while others outright banned it. Themes like love, heartache, patriotism, and family values have long been embraced in country music. Abortion was rarely spoken explicitly or empathetically in popular country music prior to this, despite the fact that grief is prevalent. Red Rag Top pushed the limits of the genre by bringing a contentious, real-life topic into the narrative forefront. A number of country radio stations either severely restricted the rotation of Red Rag Top or refused to play it. Programmers were afraid of upsetting conservative listeners or inciting anti-abortion advocacy organizations. Top country artist Tim McGraw was well known at the time for his radio-friendly songs. Recording and releasing a song on such a divisive subject was viewed as audacious and hazardous, as it would compromise the song's commercial success. The abortion issue caused discomfort for some fans, while others enjoyed the story's unvarnished, honest telling. McGraw said that the song was about life, decisions, and the development and transformation of individuals. According to him, it was intended to be personal rather than political. The song reached the top 5 on the Billboard Hot Country Songs list, in spite of the criticism. Number 4, Goodbye Earl, The Chicks, formerly Dixie Chicks.
She let the law take it from there.
The Chicks, originally known as the Dixie Chicks, have a darkly humorous revenge morther ballad called Goodbye Earl that has become one of the most talked about and contentious songs in contemporary country music. Its uplifting, catchy melody and grim subject matter, homicide and domestic abuse, caused a great deal of controversy among radio stations and listeners when it was first released in 2000. Wanda and Mary Ann, 2 lifetime friends, are the subjects of Goodbye Earl. Following Wanda's marriage to an abusive man called Earl and subsequent hospitalization, the 2 ladies plan and execute his morther and escape punishment. Key lyrics: Earl had to die. Goodbye, Earl. Those black-eyed peas, they tasted all right to me. Domestic violence and morther were the song's extremely delicate subjects, particularly for country music. Even if the victim was the abuser, many listeners and critics believed that the light-hearted tone trivialized violence, despite the fact that it plainly condemns abuse. Critics said that because of its cheerful tone, it equated justice with glorified violence. Fearing criticism from listeners or domestic abuse advocacy groups, a number of country radio stations declined to play it. Others only broadcast it after 9 p.m., or with a notice alerting viewers to its nature. The song continued to do well on the charts in spite of the criticism, indicating that people were drawn to its thought-provoking narrative. The song was hailed by some women's rights activists for empowering female victims and drawing attention to the legal system's shortcomings. However, some were worried that it may perpetuate negative preconceptions or encourage criminal justice. This song further fueled discussions over women's roles and messages in country music, which already saw the Chicks as a progressive vocal group. Certain networks, such as family-oriented channels and certain stations with conservative affiliations, banned it or severely restricted it. The song was a huge crossover hit, peaking at number 19 on the Billboard Hot 100 and numbered 13 on the Billboard Hot Country Songs chart. It became one of the Chicks' most well-known and popular songs in spite of being banned. Let's dive more on the songs that were deemed too honest, too political, or too harsh, and were either removed, protested, or outright prohibited. Number 5. Fancy, Reba McEntire.
In a one-room run-down shack on the outskirts of New Orleans.
Fancy narrates the tale of a little poor girl named Fancy, whose mother, who is deeply impoverished, advises her to dress nicely and use her charm to get out of their difficult situation. The song is a story of survival, sacrifice, and change, showing a mother's last-ditch effort to provide her daughter a better life, even if it makes reference to Fancy becoming a prostitute in order to get out of poverty. The song was daring and controversial for suggesting prostitution as a way to advance in society, particularly in the conventional country music industry. Songs depicting desperation, poverty, and a woman's rise through dubious methods posed a challenge to conventional country storylines, which frequently exalted rural and familial values. At first, a few country radio stations were hesitant or flatly refused to broadcast the song because of its delicate topics and suggested content for adults. Its candid portrayal of a young woman's sexual freedom and survival made it a hazardous selection for general broadcast. Some fans and critics hailed Fancy as an inspirational song about the tenacity and will of women. It was troubling to others, who questioned the public image of a lady who was compelled to be in unsafe circumstances. In 1991, Reba's rendition peaked at number 8 on the Billboard Hot Country Songs list. Frequently played live and featured on collections, the song became one of Reba McEntire's hallmark successes. Numerous musicians from other genres have been impacted by the original Bobby Gentry rendition, which is regarded as a classic. The event was recreated in the 1990 television film Fancy, which starred Helen Hunt and Chad Lowe. The story of the song was made more well-known by this version. The song's success across genres is demonstrated by the numerous musicians who have covered and referenced it, including Beyoncé during live performances. Number 6, Travelin' Soldier, The Chicks.
At a cafe there gave his order to a girl with a bow.
Bruce Robison wrote Travelin' Soldier, which was first recorded in 1996. One of the most moving songs in country music, it was delivered as a beautiful mini-movie. Its imagery, such as the girl sobbing beneath the seats after her soldier's name is called, strikes a deep chord. In early 2003, it rose to the top of the Billboard Hot Country Songs list after being released as a single by the Chicks in December 2002. Additionally, it was hailed by critics as one of the 201 greatest singles of the decade and placed number 150 sellers on Rolling Stone's list of the 200 greatest country songs of all time. The plot of Travelin' Soldier centers on a young American soldier who, before leaving for war, develops a close, innocent friendship with a high school girl through letters. However, the novel concludes with the soldier dying in battle, and the majority of the community is unaware of his passing. The words of Travelin' Soldier, which are incredibly patriotic, heartfelt, and respectful, have nothing to do with the controversy surrounding it. Rather, it was the moment of its popularity and something that happened when it was rising in the charts. During a London performance in March 2003, right after Travelin' Soldier reached the number 1 spot, lead vocalist Natalie Maines openly condemned President George W. Bush and the Iraq War. Country radio stations banned all of the Dixie Chicks music, fans set fire to their records, and staged protests, and the band was threatened with death. The response was swift and severe. Travelin' Soldier, which has a patriotic and anti-war tone, was removed off the playlists of several stations. The song paid tribute to a slain American soldier, but because of the band's alleged lack of patriotism, it was taken off the radio. The controversy was heightened by the discrepancy between the governmental response and the song's content. Despite achieving #1 at the time of the backlash, the song swiftly fell off the charts. Many people think that if the political storm hadn't stopped it in its tracks, it would have become one of their greatest songs ever. Even when it has little to do with the music's subject matter, it continues to serve as a symbol of the impact political speech can have on an artist's career. Number 7. Morther on Music Row, George Strait and Alan Jackson.
Play with murder. Count on me.
Morther on Music Row is a potent protest and condemnation of country music's commercialization and popification. The song mourns the disappearance of classic country music narrative, instruments, and genres on Nashville's Music Row, which serves as the industry's epicenter. The morther is symbolic rather than actual, emphasizing the demise of the genre's central character. It is stated that the fiddle and steel guitar, two instruments that are closely linked to country music, are crying and dying, signifying the disappearance of classic country features. Larry Cordell and Ronnie Bowman first recorded the song for their bluegrass album, Morther on Music Row. George Strait and Alan Jackson version gained enormous popularity in 2000 after two of the biggest names in country music, George Strait and Alan Jackson, collaborated to record a duet version. Many in the industry felt insulted because it criticized the commercial aspect of country music for putting profits ahead of artistic merit. The song received praise as a daring declaration upholding the traditions of country music by traditional country lovers. It was viewed as dismissive and scornful of the development of country music by pop country enthusiasts or those who preferred the more recent sounds. The fact that the song won CMA Song of the Year in 2000 demonstrated how strongly its message struck a chord with both fans and industry insiders. A few commercial country radio stations were hesitant to broadcast a song that was dismissive of their programming, even if they profited from the pop country hits. It encountered indirect opposition and had little airtime in several regions, although not being outright prohibited. Number 8. Two Black Cadillacs, Carrie Underwood. One of the greatest names in country music and a powerful performer, Carrie Underwood is renowned for fusing pop and country music with storytelling. The dark, cinematic storytelling song, Two Black Cadillacs, tells the story of two women who find out they are both seeing the same man, the first wife and the secret lover, and band together to exact revenge, most likely by killing him. The story is about revenge, betrayal, and female empowerment. In essence, the song is a morther ballad, a subgenre of country music distinguished by dramatic, gloomy stories that frequently include tragedy or criminality. The Two Black Cadillacs stood in for the two ladies who took the man's casket and drove off. The picture is potent and foreboding since black Cadillacs are typically connected to funerals and death. The funeral concept is further emphasized by the white ribbon that is tied on the rear of the cars. This is a metaphor for justice and morther, implying that the women's alliance sealed the man's doom. The portrayal of female strength through violent retaliation proved controversial, particularly among the audience of typically conservative rural people. By portraying women as proactive advocates for justice rather than helpless victims, the song subverts conventional gender norms. Some listeners felt uneasy, since the song allows room for interpretation on the men's fate and the women's motivations rather than categorically denouncing the crime. Because the song's topic of lover and spousal morther seemed too gloomy for general listeners, several radio stations were hesitant to play it, or only played it seldom. The song peaked at number 2 on the Billboard Hot Country Songs chart, indicating its commercial success. Underwood's embrace of a daring, edgy storyline that stood out in country radio playlists won accolades from critics. Carrie Underwood is renowned for her strong female anthems, such as Before He Cheats and Jesus Take the Wheel, which frequently examine themes of fortitude and resiliency. This song strengthened her reputation as a storyteller who isn't afraid to tackle difficult, occasionally awkward subjects. Number 9. Independence Day, Martina McBride. Independent Day is written by Gretchen Peters, a well-known musician who is renowned for her ability to relate stories and tackle difficult subjects. After learning about the difficulties women face when leaving violent situations, Peters was moved to create the song. The sensitive topic of domestic violence and the fight for independence are both addressed in the stirring and emotionally charged song, Independence Day. The song is narrated from the viewpoint of a little child who is seeing her mother get abused by her father. In a dramatic and sad attempt to gain freedom and independence, the mother finally strikes back by burning their home. In addition to being a festival in the United States celebrating independence, the term also alludes to the mother's own liberation from abuse. Domestic abuse was hardly ever publicly acknowledged in country music or on the radio at the time of its debut. Some radio stations and listeners found the song's explicit and powerful depiction of abuse, terror, and arson to be too harsh and upsetting. These country radio stations were worried about offending their fans, so they either banned or restricted their playing. The song's graphic and emotional content was deemed too strong for family-friendly programs. On the Billboard Hot Country Songs list, the single peaked at number 12. Despite not being a number 1 song, it had a cultural influence that went beyond chart success. Independence Day became one of Martina McBride's hallmark songs, in spite of obstacles. She was nominated for a Grammy for Best Female Country Vocal Performance as a result. Additionally, the Academy of Country Music, ACM, and the Country Music Association, CMA, nominated the song. It became known as a potent song for abuse survivors throughout time. Number 10. Folsom Prison Blues, Johnny Cash.
It's rolling around the bend, and I ain't seen the sunshine.
One of Johnny Cash's hallmark songs, Folsom Prison Blues, was written and released in 1955. According to reports, Cash was inspired to write the song by the 1950 movie Inside the Walls of Folsom Prison and by the sound of a train he heard while serving in the Air Force in Germany. It showcases Cash's Man in Black image by fusing rockabilly flair with country narrative. The narrative of the song is from the viewpoint of a prisoner housed at California's Folsom State Prison. The train whistle, which represents freedom passing by without him, is heard by the narrator as he expresses regret and sorrow. The lyrics express themes of loneliness, remorse, retribution, and a desire for independence. At the time, the line, "But I shot a man in Reno just to watch him die," was seen as aggressive and explicit. Songs that made overt references to death or violence were occasionally rejected by early radio stations because they were deemed unsuitable for a broad audience. During the 1950s, when the country music community tended to avoid glamorizing convicts, the song's story from a criminal's point of view was unique and daring. According to others, it might be seen as endorsing or showing sympathy for a killer. In contrast to the frequently romantic or patriotic themes that are prevalent on country radio, the emphasis on jail life and incarceration was unusual and grim. Some radio stations were hesitant to air a song about punishment, crime, and prison. The song gained enormous popularity and contributed to the definition of the outlaw country style, despite early opposition. In 1968, Johnny Cash revived his career and raised awareness of jail reform with a well-known live performance in Folsom Jail. One of the most well-known live recordings in music history is at Folsom Prison. They disregarded the rules. They were silenced by country radio. However, they became legends thanks to fans. Number 11, Mama Tried, Merle Haggard.
First thing I remember knowing was a lonesome whistle blowing and a young's dream of growing up to ride on a freight train leaving town, not knowing.
One of Merle Haggard's most well-known songs is Mama Tried, a semi-autobiographical ballad that explores his own difficult history, including his time in San Quentin State Prison, and combines themes of personal remorse, parental love, and the repercussions of crime. Lyrics theme. And I turned 21 in prison doing life without parole. No one could steer me right, but Mama tried, Mama tried. The narrative of the song is about a man who, in spite of his mother's greatest attempts to raise him morally, ends up behind bars for robbery. In addition to reflecting his own shortcomings, it pays homage to his mother, who tried her hardest to save him from failing. The song serves as both an apology and a love letter to his mother. It recognizes the suffering she endured while witnessing her son waste his life. Haggard places the responsibility on himself rather than on drugs, society, or unsavory company. The sad reality of many young men growing up with little alternatives, making poor decisions, and paying the consequences is reflected in the song. In contrast to popular country music at the time, it presented a realistic, unglamorized view of crime and punishment. Was it prohibited? Not explicitly, but some conservative stations chose not to play the song or were reluctant to broadcast one that included a prisoner confessing to failing. In spite of some broadcasters' reluctance, it nonetheless peaked at number 1 on country charts, showing that listeners appreciated its honesty. Number 12, Here's a Quarter, Call Someone Who Cares.
Be happy if you could just come back home. Well, here's
Travis Tritt. The song Here's a Quarter, Call Someone Who Cares is a sarcastic reply to an ex-lover who wants to get back together after shattering the narrator's heart. The ex of the narrator has returned and begged for forgiveness. His response is one of resistance and resentment rather than receptiveness. He actually hands her a quarter, which was the cost of a payphone call at the time, and advises her to contact someone else if she wants pity or making amends. Some radio stations, particularly those in more conservative or religious communities that favored more romantic or forgiving relationship storylines, took offense at the biting sarcasm and icy rejection of a woman's heartfelt appeal. The following lines, in particular, made some listeners think the song was cruel or overly harsh. Here's a quarter, call someone who cares. However, some, especially those who had experienced similar relationships, cherished the edge and power. The song became a fan favorite and a mainstay of Travis Tritt's live performances after peaking at number 2 on the Billboard Hot Country Singles and Tracks chart. Number 13, Long Black Veil, Lefty Frizzell, Johnny Cash.
On a cold, dark night, someone was...
The haunting country song, Long Black Veil, narrates the tale of a guy who is falsely convicted of morther and decides to stay silent and hang himself, since at the time of the crime he was having an affair with his best friend's wife. Even at the expense of his own life, he keeps her secret safe. The lady who mourns him is described by the narrator as wearing the long black veil and visiting his grave in secret while shrouded in remorse and secrecy. It combines elements of a love ballad, tragedy, and ghost story. Despite never having been outlawed nationally, Long Black Veil was controversial in specific areas or stations, particularly in its early years. The main narrative revolves around a covert affair with a best friend's wife, which was a taboo topic in conservative America in the 1950s. With a guy dying for a crime he didn't commit, the song criticizes faulty justice. It's basically a morther ballad and ghost story, which is why some radio stations at the time found it too gloomy or horrific. In more conservative or religious regions, where themes of morther, adultery, and death were deemed unsuitable for mainstream country radio, some stations shunned it. The song peaked at number 6 on the Billboard Country Chart. Number 14, Are You Sure Hank Done It This Way? Waylon Jennings. Are You Sure Hank Done It This Way by Waylon Jennings is fundamentally a critique of the status of country music in the 1970s, particularly the polished, marketed genre emerging from Nashville. Hank Williams Sr., the renowned country music godfather, is invoked as a symbol of authenticity in this rhetorical questioning. Jennings wonders if contemporary country musicians and producers are retaining that genuine, emotional essence, or if ostentatious attire, phony music, and corporate dominance have taken its place. The song confronts industries and musicians that deviate from Hank's straightforward, honest approach with its recurring query, "Are you sure Hank is done this way?" The Nashville Sound, a polished, pop-influenced production with a smooth, crossover-friendly sound, had taken over the Nashville country scene by the middle of the 1970s. Rich strings, backing choruses, and rhinestone suits were frequently used to create this sound rather than gritty, conventional country instrumentation and narrative. Waylon Jennings, Willie Nelson, and other musicians aspired to regain creative control and produce music that was authentic and rooted in their country heritage. The outlaw country movement, a response to the commercialization of country music, was born out of this revolt. The song's questioning of the legitimacy of many well-known musicians and its challenge to the existing quo made some radio stations reluctant to play it. A sizable audience was eager for authentic, unadulterated country music, as seen by the song's popularity. It peaked at number 1 on the country charts. Number 15, Loretta Lynn's Fist City. Fist City is a scathing, direct warning to a lady attempting to play pranks on Loretta Lynn's husband. The song's lyrics are blatantly aggressive, with Lynn threatening to grab you by the hair of the head and lift you off of the ground. The conventional "stand by your man" mantra is given a unique twist as Lynn comes out swinging, literally, instead of silently putting up with infidelity. Wrapped in genuine country twang, it is rough, intimate, and passionately guarded. The song was officially banned by several country radio stations because they felt it was too harsh or unladylike. In the 1960s, Loretta's forceful lyrics ran counter to conventional notions about women, particularly in the mostly male-dominated country music industry. Loretta had no regrets. She frequently penned songs on the lives of real women, including parenthood, infidelity, envy, and birth control. Fist City was actually part of a trend. At one point she said, "If you can't fight for your man, he ain't worth having." Fist City, which peaked at number 1 on the Billboard Hot Country Singles list, was a smash despite the prohibitions. Loretta's reputation as the queen of unvarnished honesty in country music was further cemented when it became one of her hallmark songs. Loretta Lynn was a woman who stood her ground, which caused a stir. Male singers frequently sang about violent retaliation and bar fights with no repercussions. Many people still expected women to be submissive and courteous in the late 1960s. That mold was broken by this song.